Hello everyone, it is your Peacekeeper, and it is time for the next video on our How to Play series on the German cruiser line. This is the Tier 6 Nürnberg class cruiser. The Nürnberg was actually not its own separate class of cruisers. It was the second ship of the Leipzig class light cruisers built in 1934 and in service with the Reichsmarine and Kriegsmarine before and during World War II. The Nürnberg is frequently separated from the Leipzig because of the modifications to her that made her different than Leipzig, but ultimately they were very similar in layout, machinery, space, layout, and construction, and were intended to be part of the same class by the German Navy. The primary differences between Leipzig and Nürnberg is the length of the ship, which Nürnberg was actually longer, and the design of the superstructure. Leipzig carried on where the preceding Königsberg class took off from, meaning they had very similar superstructure layout, whereas the Nürnberg had a more modern design that we would see carried over into other modern German cruisers. Like the Königsberg before her, the Nürnberg had a hybrid steam-diesel engine propulsion configuration, but unlike Königsberg, the configuration of the guns was different. She gained the centerline mountings for her guns that we would consider to be a modern gun layout. In terms of service history, during World War II, we're going to focus primarily on Nürnberg because Leipzig isn't really influencing this, but Nürnberg was sent to the Baltic to entrap the Polish Navy there, but was pulled off that duty to lay minefields in the North Sea. On her way back, she was attacked by the Royal Navy submarine, the HMS Salmon, which succeeded in hitting her with the torpedo in the bow, forcing her to return to Kiel for repairs. She would be restationed in the Baltic Sea and turned into a training cruiser for German U-boat crews, which were desperately needed. She would spend the rest of the war as a training cruiser and make only one more final sortie, which was a mine-laying trip to Skagerrak. But due to fuel shortages, she would return to Copenhagen and remain there until the end of the war. At the end of her war, and this is kind of just an interesting fun fact, her fuel store had been basically run dry. She had 270 long tons of fuel oil, which was probably just enough to get her from Copenhagen to Kiel or some other place. Not a whole lot there. Post-war, she did survive the war, and post-war, she would be given to the Soviet Navy as the Admiral Makarov as a prize of war, and she would serve in the Russian Navy as a training cruiser, as well as a frontline cruiser, until the Chapayev-class cruisers came out. And then she would, in the late 1950s, she would be pulled off of frontline duty and eventually be sold for scrap, or at least that's kind of what they believe happened, because the Russian government isn't really forthcoming with that information. Maybe Wargaming would give us that information. In terms of the in-game playstyle, this ship fixes some of the oddities with Königsberg's gameplay, but adds a few others. For how vaunted in her Wikipedia page, how vaunted that her maneuverability is. I mean, they really go in depth about how maneuverable this ship was using naval terms that I really don't care to bore you with. Nürnberg really isn't that maneuverable in spite of what her stats say. You know, it says 6.1 second rudder shift time and 720 meter turning radius, which is pretty comparable to other Tier 6 cruisers. However, you have to get the ship rudder all the way over in order to really get any maneuverability out of the ship. There's no part rudder. Half rudder on this ship has like absolutely zero control authority, and you basically don't notice the ship turning at those low rudder shift angles. That makes dancing between incoming fire really difficult. Also, one of the other oddities is, unlike any of the other German cruisers in the line, this one doesn't have a turtleback armor scheme, in spite of the fact that in real life she actually had a turtleback armor scheme. I suspect a large part of the reason for that is because there's no way for Wargaming to actually model her turtleback, because her turtleback wasn't the traditional turtleback with just single-angled plates. It was actually a curved 25mm plate. And that would be very difficult to model. So I don't really fault them for doing this. It's just, you can see here, you know, her citadel sits above water in some locations, and unfortunately, she only has 50mm of belt armor at her thickest portion, and that's really unacceptable for a ship of this size. I mean, it's a big target. It's not that maneuverable. It just seems to eat citadel hits from all angles, and it's really quite frustrating to play at times. She really has a passive gameplay style that I just don't enjoy, but she does have really good range for her tier. Decent fire starting capability, good rate of fire, strong AP, but ultimately she is really kind of a passive ship, and I don't really enjoy that. And I've tried playing her with both the final hull upgrade and the second hull upgrade, which we'll talk about in a minute, but the difference there in torpedoes, it really doesn't seem to make a difference. For having 6k torps, it's really kind of frustrating to try and use them because the ship just isn't maneuverable enough to play at those closer ranges, and the turrets are really weird. Speaking of the turrets, they do still do 360-degree turns, but they have really, really poor firing arcs for having those 360-degree turns unless you're at long ranges. At max range, you actually have really, really good turret arcs. At closer ranges, you really have to expose that broadside to incoming fire to really use more than just your front turret. And that's one of my biggest gripes about this ship. Oh, she is the first German cruiser to get that dedicated anti-aircraft hull upgrade. That's that final hull upgrade that I was talking about. To get it, you sacrifice 2 of your triple torpedo turrets, so you go from having 12 torpedoes down to 6, and 2 on each side, 2 triple launchers on each side. And you also lose your catapult fighter, but you gain a bunch of medium and short-ranged AA. There does not appear to be any other changes with this upgrade aside from that, but it is well worth the expenditure, in my opinion, due to the prevalence of carriers at Tier 6. She does become a pretty strong anti-aircraft ship with the final hull upgrade, and really only loses those situational torpedoes that I really don't find all that useful myself. So, that to me, it's a worthwhile upgrade to me. You make your own choice. Let's talk about stats. 27,000 hit points. Like I said, her main belt thickness is only 50 millimeters. She does have some heavier armor sections. Her front bulkhead is 70 millimeters. Her turret face is 80. The conning tower is 100. But beyond that, she is really quite soft. Torpedo damage reduction of 7%. How is beyond me. There's no bulges on this ship, so yay arbitrary numbers. Her main battery does consist of 3 triple 150 millimeter 60 caliber. Those guns, you can see them here. They got 1 turret up front, 2 out back. This is a very common German cruiser layout, especially for their light cruisers. And she does have a secondary armament, which is, again, going to consist of those 88s. They are in dual pairs, so there's 4 of those turrets that have 2 per, so 8 total 88s. Main battery firing range is 16.5K, reload time 6 seconds, 10.5% fire chance, that's worth noting. But look at that AP damage, 3,900 AP damage, that's a lot. Those secondaries, they do come out to 5K, and that's without having advanced firing training on the captain. So if you got advanced firing training, if you had a higher tier captain on this, you could see a more secondary range, and maybe they would actually be useful. I don't know. I doubt it. Even with a 9.5% fire chance and 3.8 second reload, I just don't see those being terribly useful. Torpedo tubes. She does in the final hull configuration. Again, she has 2 of the triple torpedo tubes. In the B hull, the second hull upgrade, she does have 2 additional ones, so that would give her 2 triple turrets on each side. They have a 6 kilometer range, 64 knot top speed, and a 1.3 kilometer detection range, and they do a whopping 13,700 damage. Not too bad. In the final hull configuration, her anti-aircraft suite consists of 6 20mm single guns, 14 dual 20mm, 2 quad 20mm, 8 single 40mm, and those 4 dual 88s. And that AA bubble starts out at 4K. Again, this is going to be without advanced firing training. This is also going to be without the AA gun range upgrade, which, if you're going to run the ship as a dedicated anti-aircraft cruiser, I definitely recommend taking that, as it will bump that AA range out even further. Maneuverability, 32 knot top speed, 720 meter turning radius, 6.1 second rudder shift time, and again, I just don't feel like this ship has the maneuverability of some of the other Tier 6 cruisers. She seems a little lethargic at part rudder inputs, and it makes dodging incoming fire, especially at close ranges, very difficult. Concealment range by sea is 10.8K. That's going to be with Concealment Expert. Detection range by air, 6.1K. In terms of upgrades, main armaments mod 1. We are in a really soft ship. This ship is so soft that I really feel like we need to keep main armaments mod 1 on here. That might disappear later on, but for right now, we're going to keep it on there. That's going to reduce the chances of your main battery and torpedo tubes becoming incapacitated by 20%. It's going to increase their hit points by 50% and decrease the time it takes to repair them by 20%. In the third slot, Aiming Systems Mod 1, this is going to be the offensive option. If you're going to play the ship as it probably was intended to play with a more passive role, I definitely recommend Aiming Systems Mod 1 for the reduction in your main battery dispersion by 7%. The torpedo tube traverse time is nice. That's going to increase the speed at which they turn by 20%. It is also going to increase your secondary main battery firing range. Your secondary battery firing range by 5% and decrease the dispersion by 5%. Woo! Other options, AA Guns Mod 2 is really the only other one that I would consider. That's going to bump out your AA max range a total 20% more. That just helps push those 88s out from 4K to just shy of 5K. I really think that that's a good option there, and if you combine that with the AFT, you're going to get even more like 5.6, I think, 5.6K for your range. You do get defensive fire on this, so that's always nice. In the third slot, Propulsion Systems Mod 1, that's going to reduce the chance of your main engine becoming incapacitated by 20% and decrease the time it takes to repair it by 20%. I've taken this over Steering Gears Mod 1. If you've watched my other How to Play series in this, I explained to you that this upgrade doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I would much rather be able to keep moving forward and backwards than deal with the steering gears being out than the other, which is to have steering but no propulsion. It's far easier for me to angle the ship with the engines out and still having the rudder intact than it is the other way around to try and maneuver the ship with a rudder but no propulsion. Damage Control Systems Mod 1, really not all that useful on a cruiser, so I don't take it. In the last slot, I take Steering Gears Mod 2. This just helps reduce the rudder shift time by 20%. Without it, it goes up to like 7.2 seconds. That's not that bad, but with how lethargic this ship feels, with how slow it responds to rudder changes, I just think that the quicker we can get the rudder full over, the quicker we'll actually get to that 720 meter turning radius. Propulsion Systems Mod 2 is always an honorable mention if you're one of those types of people who likes to sit behind islands and burn everything to death. This is certainly an option. It's going to reduce the time it takes for your ship to get to full power. It mostly operates in that -6 knot to 6 knot range. It increases how quickly you get to -6 or +6 knots. After that, it really doesn't do much. Damage Control Systems Mod 2, definitely a non-starter on this ship, simply because you're giving up too much with the other, that you could have with the other mods. Anyway, enough of me blabbering, it's time for a battle video. Alright, so this battle is a Tier 6 fight, and there are going to be carriers, not just one carrier, but two. Unfortunately for them, they were only Tier 5 carriers, which means, well, they don't have manual drop, so that kind of makes them really a non-issue in these types of match. I guess the dive bombers could be an issue. There are a lot of battleships on each team. There are 4 on the enemy team and 4 on ours. So that's plenty, and not a whole lot of destroyers, which is rather unfortunate. The map is Trident, and we are going to... This map is a little difficult to really judge because it depends on your team and their team which direction you want to go. On this map, we're going to stay to the east, and we're going to actually end up going to their cap through the east. Our team kind of mostly sort of heads them off in the west, so we're just going to take advantage of the fact that most of their ships are going to be heavily distracted by the time that we get involved. You'll see initially I go to the west here because I usually don't like going to the east on this map, simply because there's no cover anywhere. It's really hard to do well going to the east. There's just not enough cover there. That's why this map tends to hover towards the left side of the map and in the middle. Battles on the east side tend to be pretty lopsided, and you'll see that here. Now, I'm going to show you the turret arcs here, and I want you to pay attention. You know, yes, the rear turrets actually traverse 360 degrees, like we talked about in the first half, but they have really, really poor arcs at closer ranges. So there's, you know, kind of an idea there of which... what the arc is. Now, we will eventually get, you'll see, certainly throughout this battle, you'll see how restrictive those gun arcs will actually be. Of interesting side note, the torpedoes do reload reasonably quick, so if you do end up using them, it's not like they're down forever like on some ships. So we are over here with the Furutaka and a Bayern. And it looks like our Farragut's going to join us over here. So that's a good sign. We've got some help coming our way. We got Emile Bertin in Dunkirk over here as well. Nice that the Furutaka managed to launch his aircraft. Graf Spee. So the Graf Spee is an interesting ship. In fact, I think it was... No, I'm thinking of the Hippers. So the Nürnberg and Leipzig actually did spend some minimum time escorting the Prinz Eugen. In fact, Leipzig was damaged when she collided with the Prinz Eugen. You can see we got Emile Bertin, the Graf Spee, and a Farragut over here. Emile is a reasonably soft cruiser, so he definitely can get away with stuff. I'm launching those torpedoes in case that Farragut comes around. You saw him pop up real briefly, and there he goes. He's popped up, so we're going to focus him down now. Now, German HE is not something that's really worth writing home about. Look at that dispersion. What the heck happened there? I don't know. Anyway, pretty trollish dispersion. We got incoming aircraft. Again, AA range is only 4K, so got to keep that in mind. But we're going to pop our defensive fire. We're going to select those dive bombers because we managed to beach ourselves. Tactical beaching, as it were. And you can see here, look at how quickly those aircraft died. Now, granted, Tier 5 aircraft, so not a fantastic representation, but we did shoot down 3 of them. We've got more. Wow, nice torpedo drop. We shot down 3 more. And we are continuing to shoot down aircraft as we go. Plus, our defensive fire is causing a nice scattering effect for aircraft. We are just fantastic team players. Now, like a jerk face, I am going to sit here behind this island. You can see I keep beaching myself. I'm not really attempting to get out of here all that quick. I am trying to shoot this New Mexico and start him on fire like we just did. We are going to lose our Emile Bertin, though. That's kind of unfortunate. It was nice to have him there being a forward scout and possibly spotting this Farragut. Don't really care about that front turret. I don't want to back up too much and expose too much, especially since the chance for us to fire from stealth here behind this island is so high. So we got to start backing up because we are shooting the island with more than our rear 2 turrets. We need to keep backing up. So we got those turrets free again. And trying to start them on fire. Like, this is one of those times where you're like, oh my goodness, for a 10.5% fire chance, we're really not doing all that well. Well, we're detected again. And we are adding up damage quite nicely there. Okay, so that finally got a fire. Let's switch to AP now, and you can see just how much damage the AP on this ship is going to do. Now, New Mexico, reasonably well-armored ship. It is an all-or-nothing armor scheme, which means that any shells that are going to hit something aside from an armored portion aren't going to do a whole lot of damage. So 624 damage on that first salvo, but 3K! I mean, there are battleships that would love to have that kind of damage output. Yeah, we hit them again. It looked like about 2K. And you can see here, we get the kill. So, AP, very, very, very strong. Now it's a matter of figuring out what we're going to do. Now, we got this Farragut over here, a friendly and enemy Farragut over here. We do have the Duca d'Aosta, or the Italian ship, Pasta, as many people like to say. I'm going to definitely go over there. Tried saying hello to Lombi, but he didn't actually respond to me. That's just not nice. fellow STW clan member there. So we are going to go ahead and we're going to turn around and we're going to push through this area. The Farragut, the Dunkirk, and New Mexico are all over here providing excellent support, at least initially. And we have aircraft inbound, so we need to pay attention to them. If you've not seen my video on situational awareness, just as a quick tip to the dealing with torpedo bombers and dive bombers, torpedo bombers in an ideal configuration want to attack from straight off to your sides, dive bombers from your nose or your rear. So you want to turn into torpedo bombers and turn away from dive bombers. That can be kind of confusing. You're going to have to determine what's a priority for you. Now, me personally, I think torpedo bombers do way more damage in the long run. Here you can see the angles on the ship. I think torpedo bombers are way more dangerous in the long run, but that's not to say dive bombers shouldn't be respected. I mean, they definitely should. So pay attention here to the gun arcs. You can see here, now I'm straight bow on, not terribly surprised by that, but look at how far over I have to actually traverse to get the rear two guns into this fight. I pretty much have to be showing a pretty juicy broadside. And we are shooting at max range at the Duke, and yeah, we're not getting very far with it. Hey, finally got the rear turrets in. Oh, look what popped up on the mini-map. Almost immediately noticed that. I was looking for him. I was actually waiting for his torpedoes. Switch to HE there quick. That's that expert loader coming into handy. And we are going to finish off this Farragut here. We are up to 31,000 damage. 31,313 damage to be specific. And you can see this is one more reason why I like the dispersion upgrade. 1,400 damage with that last salvo, 4 penetrating hits. And 2 penetrating hits for 842 damage. German HE is really not that impressive. However, AP on a destroyer is not good when they are exposing a broadside like this. It just tends to not pen. Now, this is a perfect example of what I was talking about with the gun arcs and just how much of a broadside you have to show. Ooh, we hit him. Ooh, good. And look at that. I have to. That really does get quite old after a while. 1,600 damage. And again, the rear turret just not coming into play here. 877. And, oh, come, what? Our Farragut got him. All right. Well, there's nothing over here, so we're going to continue pushing. Now, we do have the Duke. We do have Pasta over here. We are going to try and engage him as best we possibly can. We have aircraft incoming again, so we are going to try our dangest to, maneuver to minimize his damage dealing capabilities. But we are going to pop our defensive fire, and you can see just how quickly those aircraft melt. Now, I switched right away to the other set because he only had one left in there, in that squad. Time to switch now to the torpedo bombers. And again, miss, and miss. And, ooh, we finally managed to take damage. Slam on the brakes! Turn! Super late braking! And you can see here that actually worked out really well in our favor. Tried switching to AP there to try and get him, but nope. He's turning away, so maybe this time. Only able to fire with those front turrets. This is one of the downsides of this configuration. Like, it's just... the configuration is frustrating. I don't know of any other way to say that. Oh, we got a normal pen there. But he's gone quiet. And he is doing his dangest, 1, to keep us off the cap, but 2, protect those 2 carriers that are there. You can see 406, 401, we're actually pretty even team-wise, but I got way more hit points than he does. So he's going to probably try and torpedo me, which means we need to be WASDing. I am now detected again, and I'm trying to actually get away from their cruise. Oh, okay, so we pop back up. I'm trying to angle myself in such a way that I'm going away from their battleships over on the other side. That way they can't, take advantage of my broadside. But we are exposing a fairly healthy broadside to them. But okay, so we've got AP. Ooh, we got a Citadel hit out of that. And eventually we're going to get the kill here. Oh, come on! Turning away quite cleverly. chasing him down with the front only guns. Like, come on. Oh, for Pete's sakes. Non-damaging penetrating hit. God dang it, Wargaming. Oh, 644 with 2 normal pens. Are you joking? Okay, finally, he's dead. Seriously. Once again, we are being attacked by the enemy aircraft carrier. Make it stop. Those, I think, are the Zuihos aircraft. And we've not taken enough HE damage to really kill off a whole bunch of our AA, so we're still pretty potent here. And we're going to go ahead. We are now in their base. We shot down the one dive bomber set. Now it's time to get the other one. And I'm trying to decide how I'm going to actually go about doing this. We kind of make an interesting decision here. We are detected that Bayern is definitely on its way in, so it's something we need to be cognizant of. Charge torping, yeah. I mean, we're detected anyway. It's not going to matter. Defensive fire, we popped it because the carrier's aircraft were there. And you can see here, one aircraft shot down. And again, we're not able to really get... Slam on the brakes! Wasn't really able to get that other gun in. And unfortunately had to expose quite a healthy broadside here. Like, speed up! Come on! Yes! Look at that pro dodge here. Now, I'm going to turn completely away in the situation. I don't want to expose this broadside, and I'm much better off as a kiting ship than I am in a attacking ship. Now, that's not to say that the ship is terrible when charging. It's just the ship doesn't have anything aside from its torpedoes to really help it, and you have to be within 6K. We're not in a good enough position here to actually utilize that. So, oh, he took off 2,100 damage. And our destroyer is spotting the carriers for me. We managed to start them on fire. Again, turning in this time, trying to get those over pens instead of normal pens, and that seemed to have worked. We are now turning around. We're going to try and charge him because, well, we need to get a little risky here. And risky it is. So once again, look at how these arcs definitely do not favor this ship when it comes to this configuration. Just the 1 and 2 config just does not work out that well. We managed to start them on fire again. That's always good. And again, look at the angle of those guns. Oh hey, we got a Citadel with HE. Sweet. So we'll switch to actual AP. Maybe we'll get some real Citadels. It helps to aim, though. Speaking of aiming, someone that's not doing it is the Bayern. We're going to launch torpedoes at him. This is one of those times where I was wishing I had the other hull configuration. Like, if we had the other one, this would have been much nicer. Getting a lot of over pens on the Zuiho. There's not a lot of armor there. Oh, we are now in the Bayern secondaries. And we're going to transition the other way. And it helps to actually aim at the right place. Come on, Peacekeeper. Aim at the right place. Aim at the right place. There we go. 7,800 damage. And we are again launching torpedoes. Wow! 6 Citadels in one hit. Wow! Managed to get the Bayern to turn away. I'm glad with this. Unfortunately, the torpedoes didn't hit him. We are now going to run away while we attempt to engage this bogue. We are up to 96,000 damage. That really helps out a lot. Whoa, what were those shells doing? Again, we are in the process of retreating because a tactical retreat is amazing. Jeez, 10K! And a Confederate. Yeah. So, AP on this ship, very strong, 10K with 2 Citadels. That was really quite impressive. 110,000 damage. He's on fire, baby. Burn, baby, burn. Let's go. Switching to AP because he is exposing a bit of a broadside, and we are just wiggling and waggling. We're taking advantage of the fact that the Bayern has really poor dispersion for a Tier 6 battleship. It really is a close-in brawler, and oh, okay. Come on, torpedoes, hit him so that this is over, so that the nightmare is over. Yes! Awesome. So overall, Nürnberg, not my favorite ship in the world. It took me a while to get to this battle, and it's a good battle. 114,767 damage, 3 kills, lots of Citadels. 2,195 base XP, 26 aircraft shot down, 3 kills again. There's the detailed report, and there's the credits and XP screen. Overall, I'm not a huge fan of this ship. Like I said, it just feels a little too lethargic, a little too slow to respond to rudder inputs for me to really enjoy playing it. I know that there are people that enjoy it, I just don't like that passive gameplay style. Anyway, I'm your Peacekeeper. Like, comment, subscribe, and thank you for watching.